Oh, hey, what you doing? Well, guess what? You're about to enjoy a conversation from the latest live episode of Snaps. Have a good time.
We'll go LSU, Alabama first before we'll give TBob and them Tigers a little love. So LSU, Alabama on the road against them Tigers, night game, Death Valley. I'll give you the floor first, TBob, because it is
Okay.
your team. Go first. Initial thoughts.
I would say this. Okay, and unfortunately, I need to do some stupid ass meeting here, so it took away all my film time that I wanted to do before today's show on this game. Just from watching these teams live this year, I've not gotten to dive into the Bama film as much as I want to at this point, but my first pass at this game, Aaron, is on the whole, I don't feel great about it. From the LSU perspective, I apologize. And I'm going to say that there are three main elements in play here for my opinion. First, I know this is not Nick Saban's Alabama, but I think there is absolutely a brand element here that I am struggling with, right? Because for 15 years, or let's just say 10, 12, whatever, however long I've been done playing, I worked myself into a tizzy for this game and it just a bloodlust fervor. And I convinced myself, okay, LSU Jackson, and it's go crazy. And then it almost never goes well for LSU, or it hasn't here in the past 15 years, right? It almost never has. It's always been very disappointing. And I'm not even talking like close losses. Like a lot of times at the end of the, Saban era, it was like you get all pumped up for a game. You might lose like 29-0. Like one of the game day games was 29-0. And so even though I know it's not the same, like that is hard to shake, right?
Yeah.
I think the second element that is a bit hard to shake, it's classic, what have you done for me lately? The last time I saw LSU play, that second half collapse was one of the worst that you will ever see. And the last time you saw Alabama play, it was their best game of the entire season, beating Mizzou 34-0. And then the third element of this game, Aaron, I would say is that I don't know that I feel that LSU is particularly well suited to stopping where Alabama's strong, but maybe more especially to exploiting where Alabama's weak. And the ultimate example of that would be Alabama actually does not have a good run defense. It is the thing that has got them into the most trouble this year. If we look at the common elements in their losses and or close games, that is something that has reared its head. However, LSU is dead last in the SEC in rush yards. And as we'll get to, now Garrett Dellinger's out for this game. So he was your best run blocker. He's a guard, the most important position to running the ball. Like, it ain't going to get any better. And so what I'm really latching on to is simply Death Valley at night.
Yep.
Because otherwise, I don't love this matchup when I just sit down and think about it.
See, I'm complete opposite of you. Like as I go through, give me the outsider here, someone who hasn't been bent over. Actually, I had been bent over against Bama. Obviously, Georgia's only team they lose to is Alabama. So when I look at the position by position, let's just break it down that way for a quick second. Quarterback advantage, both very different. I still rank Nussmeier a little bit ahead of Jalen based on this year's performance. Running back position, advantage Alabama. Offensive line, I'd give advantage to LSU. Receivers, tight ends, major advantage to LSU. So overall, I say LSU is a better offense than Alabama. Defensively, secondary, both not great. Front seven, maybe a little bit of edge because of the way Weeks is playing. Maybe a little bit of edge to LSU. Am I wrong in any of these breakdowns? What position am I wrong on? I think LSU's from top to bottom the better football team. I just think at the end of the day, if Milroe's healthy and he looks the way he did versus Georgia, that's the game changer. Alabama has to have Jalen playing Heisman-like football to win. And I think LSU has enough around Nussmeier to where as long as he doesn't just start throwing picks left and right like he did versus A&M, which A&M's defense is better than Alabama's defense, I think LSU wins this football game. I think LSU is better rostered right now.
I think the problem is the exercise that you just did I felt the same way about Texas A&M, right? We played that
Once
exact game.
again, A&M had the advantage of they were not prepared to face that quarterback.
Yeah,
It would have been completely different. Completely different. I still stand by it. If LSU prepared half the week for a dual threat quarterback, the second half would have been different. I don't know if they would have won or not or whatever, but you go in against a one quarterback that's going to send the pocket and throw it. He gets benched, and all of a sudden you have a guy that you are not ready to prepare for the zone read at all. Guess what? You've had now 2 weeks to figure out how to stop Jalen Milroe running the football. 2 weeks. It's a big difference than all of a sudden just getting thrown in your face.
Yeah, that I agree. 2 weeks. How do you, because when I look at LSU defending dual threat quarterbacks, it has been a mixed bag. Yep. Like Marcel Reed was god awful, but at the same time, like Aaron said, it was a bit of a unexpected curveball, and it comes with like, oh, let's gift him a short field every time he touches the ball. So it was like a perfect storm of really A&M. And again, you know me, A&M made that happen in my opinion, but it was still a perfect storm to set Marcel Reed up for extreme success. But also Lenore Sellers was doing pretty damn good against LSU. Yep. Now, this is an earlier version of that defense, not quite as good, but if Lenore Sellers does not get hurt in that South Carolina game, South Carolina wins that game. They're in the playoff conversation right now, and they're probably top 15 in the entire country.
Agree with that.
Then again, even though Taylor Green probably did a bit better than the stats said in that Arkansas game by game's end, they did a good example of stopping Taylor Green. LSU did. So, like, it kind of depends. Like, okay, what LSU defense are you going to get? And I will say this.
But I don't think they need to be dominant, though. Like, I don't think you need to go out there and say, you know, we have to hold them to, you know, 100 yards, under 100 yards rushing. I still think, to me, there is more of a gap of LSU's passing attack going against Alabama's secondary, which we've illustrated this entire season. Those guys on the back end are very green. Guys get open. Going against what I would consider probably the best passing attack in the SEC. I think there's a bigger issue for Alabama's secondary going against
LSU's Alabama's secondary bad, though? When have they looked bad?
Multiple times this year. Multiple times.
I mean, I think about Georgia, but when
Tennessee, they got lucky because Nico was just off, but receivers were wide open down the field. Wide open down the field.
Yeah, I guess I just like okay, because I was looking like
Lenore Sellers was 23 of 31 for 238, 2 touchdowns. On the road in Tuscaloosa.
Yeah. Does his ability to run the ball change any of that? I don't. Okay.
Nico threw for 200 yards and he missed about 4 receivers down the field that were open. I mean, I remember talking about that. Like, at Tennessee could have thrown for 400 yards if he would have been more accurate that football game. I mean, guys were 5 yards past the DBs. So yes, I'll stand by it. I do not think Alabama's secondary is very good.
Do you think? Okay, see, so that's maybe where I'm off. Is that I still think I was thinking Alabama's secondary is pretty good. No. The only time they struggle is when the team runs the ball very well and they're able to kind of scheme him up, a la how Vanderbilt did for like some big plays, and or Lenore Sellers in South Carolina. But no, you're saying, I mean, even Tennessee, right? I mean, obviously Dylan Sampson is the heart and soul of that offense. So you think LSU, knowing that LSU is going to mainly pass the ball, you think they have a wide advantage, even with Alabama knowing that ahead of this game in that regard?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
Major advantage. And listen, Missouri's backup quarterback is god-awful. God-awful. You cannot judge Alabama on that football game at all.
Yeah.
Maybe from like a confidence standpoint, like, oh man, we're pretty good, but Missouri's backup quarterback should not be playing D1 football.
Yeah, Pine, you're not even giving him D1 status?
No, not D1. No.
Pine should be riding the Pine.
I would not put him anywhere in college football playing.
The OG 7240 Club, hell of a name, says LSU can't stop the run. Impossible to beat Bama not stopping the run. LSU's built to play. That I would disagree with. Because if you look at LSU, they played Ole Miss, one of the top rushing teams in the entire conference. They stopped them there, and by extension stopped Jackson Dart. They played Arkansas, one of the top rushing teams in the entire conference. That was their best game, stopping the run and really forced Taylon Green into some bad situations. And before the Marcel Reed switch up, they dominated the A&M run game. Even with Le'Veon Moss having more success than those previous two mentions, like they were the defense was having their best game of the season until Marcel Reed enters. So I don't know that I agree that LSU can't stop the run. In fact, that is maybe the thing that I am most hanging my hat on here is that, like, when has Alabama struggled this year? Obviously, Tennessee and South Carolina. What do both of those have? Very good D lines and by extension, front sevens. Although this feels crazy based on my preseason analysis, I actually like LSU's front seven. The interior is not the strongest, but the edges are really fucking good. And Whit Weeks, Greg Penn, Major Burns, they've really come online and done a good job. So, like, if I look at common elements where Alabama struggled that maybe LSU could replicate, it would be number one, they struggled at Tennessee. Well, it's going to be at Death Valley at night. That's going to be huge. And then in the same way, can you contain Jam Justice, put it on Milroe, and get him off schedule and force him to beat you throwing the ball? And I do trust Blake Baker to scheme up some interesting ideas as to how to contain him and funnel him into lanes in which you're kind of waiting on him and prepared for him.
I think it's easier to game plan if with an extra week. It's easier to game plan for Alabama's offense than it is LSU's offense. I think Baker's going to have a solid game plan ready to slow down Milroe's legs. But if Milroe goes off,
that's true though with such a one-dimensional LSU offense because they really can't run the ball. I mean,
I don't know. At times they can't. I just think that there's so many options from a playmaker standpoint on the outside that it's not like it's Nussmeier and one receiver. No, it's Nussmeier. There's three talented receivers plus a talented tight end. There's just a lot that you can't double or just say we're gonna just focus on this side of the offense. Like, no, LSU can beat you from one side to the other at any given play, outside, inside, tight end. So why they may not be able to consistently run the football, it comes down to two things. If LSU wins the football game, it's because Garrett Nussmeier, as long as he takes care of the football, I think they'll score points. And then for Alabama, if Jalen is healthy and he looks like the elite athlete like he did in the first half versus Georgia, then I do think that is a problem if Alabama does commit to the run.
Well, I mean, Jalen Milroe, now granted, I think LSU had the worst defensive gameplay I've ever seen last year, but Jalen Milroe dominated this game with his legs last year. And Marcel Reed dominated LSU with his legs last year, had them completely frozen. But to your point, Aaron, there is a direct learning lesson for this staff and this defense to really like hammer on, okay, we got to be ready this week. Mm-hmm. My concern is the Garrett Dellinger injury. So for those that don't know, Garrett Dellinger is LSU's left guard. He's played in 40 games. He started 31. It's his fourth year starting. He got a high ankle sprain against Texas A&M early on in that game. It definitely played an element in that game. I'm always someone who's thought that the most important position to running the ball is guard, and you're replacing him with a true freshman in Paul Mabinga, who isn't even actually your sixth guy. He's your seventh guy because your sixth guy got hurt in Tyree Adams. That's a big step down, dude. And that isn't – so it's like, again, this LSU team, when they're at their best, it's when Garrett Nussmeier's just doing incredible things. Yep. And I feel bad, Aaron. Maybe you can speak to this. Like, we talked about him having to stand on his head a bit. I feel like going into this game, that is going to be even more so than normal because I really don't know how you're going to find success running the ball when you lose your best run blocker and replace him with a freshman.
Yeah.
And so, like, good luck, Nuss. Mm-hmm. You better be locked in and ready to make some fucking plays because you're going to have to.
Besides the second half of the game last week, he hasn't played like a lot of bad moments.
No, South Carolina, he fell into a couple, but then he made up for them. But yeah, those would be the two.
Yeah, I mean, like overall this season, he has been. So, like, if you're betting on what Garrett Nussmeier are we going to get? I based on based on the entire season, you bet on the fact that he's going to have a good game.
Yes, I do wonder though, like Alabama. Okay, what all pocket quarterbacks have they faced this year?
Carson,
Wisconsin, not
for
gonna really
over 400
count.
yards.
Yeah,
I mean,
I know, but the picks.
yeah.
That's what I'm
But
worried about,
but
is a similar kind of stat line to what Carson put out there.
yeah. But I think once again, the advantage is last game was on the road against A&M. Carson on the road against Alabama. At home, hopefully you're not having to deal with that. But he did throw a couple picks versus Ole Miss though too. Garrett Nussmeier at home.
Again, now one thing he's been able to do is make up for it, and the defense has held the rope for him. But it's just playing with fire. Yeah. And when you're trying to beat a really good team in a playoff elimination game, which fuck you, Aaron, guess what? Playoff Thunderdome. It's finally here.
It is here.
Playoff Thunderdome. Two teams enter. One team leaves.
You were like pissing in the bed last night. You're a little premature with it, but now you can just go to the toilet, let it release. This is Thunderdome weekend. This is it right here.
Baby. Thunderdome is finally here. Max says, so the question is Bama good run defense? Numbers say no, but we'll see. Again, Bama's run defense is not good, but LSU's LSU's rush offense is worse. That's the issue. I'll tell you one thing I like about this game. In Kalen DeBoer and Brian Kelly, you have a couple of head coaches that both climb the ladder. You cannot accuse either of these guys of being Nepo babies. No. Like, both these are coaches that earn their way up from the mud, going through every level of football, proven to be consistent winners at every level of football. And now it all comes to a head in a playoff Thunderdome in Death Valley Saturday night. And that's enough to get me pretty freaking excited, dude.
All right, make your pick. LSU is a 3-point dog right now. I got LSU the outright win.
I mean, unfortunately, guys, I'm going to have to kind of treat this like I did the Ole Miss game. I'm too close to it. Take me off the case. You ain't going to get me picking fucking Bama. Okay. Fuck those motherfuckers. I hope LSU kicks their dicks in this weekend. I gave you my analysis on the game just now and where I'm insecure and where I feel like Alabama could have advantages and why I might lean Alabama. But fuck that. I hope the Crimson Tide gets there. I cannot. Don't let me go to post game with a dub. Don't let me do it, dude. Fuck you, motherfucker. I will shit all over you. Okay. I will shit all over you. I will piss all over you to keep the theme of the show. But yeah, so I'm picking LSU, of course, dude. Tigers at night in Death Valley. Let's freaking ride, dude.
Let's go.
Well, I'd say that was pretty fun. Maybe had a laugh or two, potentially even learned a thing along the way. If you did enjoy it, please consider hitting the like button, subscribing, and we'll see you next time for more snaps.